How many of you watched the escalation over the last week and watched the invasion and thought it's not possible? Aren't we past this? Especially those of us who are on a spiritual path, who have been working for years to raise the consciousness on our planet, to do the work around this whole notion that we are one global family, and then the unthinkable happens. I notice for myself sometimes what the tendency is, well, quite frankly, it's to withdraw and to say, no, this can't be possible, and to turn away. And I will tell you that that is the most rookie spiritual mistake that we can make. I've been doing this for a long time, and I still find myself making that mistake. I love this quote. I posted it a week and a half ago on my Facebook feed. I borrowed it from somebody else. I will not try to say to you, Tiana Lukovic is who I borrowed it from the Facebook post. This is a quote by L.R. Nost. Do not be dismayed by the brokenness of the world. All things break, and all things can be mended. Not with time, as they say, but with intention. So go. Love intentionally, extravagantly, unconditionally. The broken world waits in darkness for the light that is you. This is our work now. This is our work every day. What do you need me to do?
Take the earring off the mic.
Thank you.
There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah.
This is our work now. This is our work every day. When we see the old outpicturing of the old patriarchy clinging to a world run by power and greed, our spirituality tells us that our path is different than this. And that the path of humanity to create sustainability and equity and a life that works not only for us, but for all of humanity, is to stand in the truth of which we know and to not be moved from it. This does not mean we can turn away. This does not mean that we can avoid the news or we can avoid what's going on. It means that we say no. No, this is not how humanity is to behave. This is not how we move forward on a planet that works for all of us, in lives and homes and nations and countries and societies that may work all differently, but work for each one of us. You know, I saw an interesting article the other day that said, despite what you read in the news, the culture wars have already been won. We already believe in one human family. We already feel our interconnectedness in an extraordinary way, thanks to the internet, thanks to the pandemic. It appears that there are people on the planet who don't know that yet, and who continue to move in a different path. It is our job to be awakened. It is our job to look directly at it and to say no. Our sacred purpose is to be prophets of a new way, reminding us of the danger and inevitable destruction which comes if we do not change our ways. Many of us here in this room, watching this online, have done all we can to change our ways. And yet there's always more to do. One of the ways that I have to change is not to turn away, is not to value my own peace and comfort more than I value the discomfort of looking directly at where we are still blind, where we are still playing out old patterns, old ideas, old theologies, old philosophies, to not look away, but to align ourselves with spiritual truth and to demand that our governments and leaders do the same. Thank you. So, there's a lot of things that CSLDallas does, and sometimes I'm surprised at how behind the scenes are. We think everybody knows it, and then we realize that nobody knows it. So what you may not know is that we've been supporting our work in Ukraine for the last 4 years. And on and off before that, we have supported a work in Ukraine. Reverend Barbara Leger is a friend of mine. I've known her for, the 15 years she's been doing this work. And she began her work in the Ukraine. It's a Catholic country. There is a state religion. And they have, in the last few years, found an entirely new way to bring the message of self-responsibility and humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence. They have created an extraordinary program called Understanding Peace. Because what you may not know is Ukraine has been in an on-again, off-again war now for 8-10 years. They're kind of used to bombs. What a strange thing to get used to. And they have completely reimagined their teaching and practicing of a new way of being in the world. This is what she wrote to Reverend Karen and myself at the end of last year, when she had written a piece about what they have been accomplishing in Ukraine. And out of that and out of this note, we doubled our support of what they're doing in Ukraine. She writes in part, I ask you to continue to support the evolution of what we discovered and the template we developed as we take it out into the entire country of Ukraine as a proving ground that models the power of the choice of peace. In fact, we intend to be utilized in 10 languages over the next 18 months. At this tender time of growth, from a seedling to a tree, your partnership... This was written earlier this year. Your partnership is even more essential as we embark on the process of sharing the necessary step of ownership, stewardship, and self-determination in the Ukraine. A country at a clear crossroads of which wolf will win the battle. As the story goes, it is the one we feed the most. We believe that peace is the true operating system for our times, and we serve this development with passion, purpose, and alacrity. Next week's New Year report demonstrates the transformation in the 50-plus schools, the 140 teachers, and the 5,000-plus students who participated in 2020 and 2021 in our program. Registration is open now and clearly is going to double for the spring semester, as it seems they all enthusiastically want to grow more by joining in 2022 process with an upgraded curriculum. And most schools want to shift from 4 classes participating to the whole school immersed in the Understanding Peace project all over Ukraine. Yeah. So there is work going on everywhere. The problem is, of course, that doesn't get the news, does it? You don't see that on the headlines. There are countless organizations, corporations, businesses, individuals, churches, spiritual communities that are working. What we have to understand is that they exist to not be inundated by the story that we see in the media that constantly sensationalizes everything. And, as we can well know, takes over the channels that you and I have come to rely on. You have to pay attention to what's out there. Make sure you're only watching credible news sources. Do not be fooled by what's out there in social media and what's being posted, which may or may not have anything to do with reality. This is our task, to critically think, to decide what we are going to stand for, and to lend our consciousness, our energy, and our actions, to not turn away in service to our own personal experience of peace, but to bring our claim that peace is the only way forward, to bring that claim into everything that we do. Truthfully, you guys, there's nothing we can sit out on. Nothing. Now, not every one of us can get involved in everything that matters to us. We have to get involved in the one or two things that we can give committed, conscious intention and energy to, and trust that there are other people taking care of the rest, because there are, regardless of what we see in the media. So I want to remind you that we're having a vigil tonight. It is an opportunity for us to use our spiritual tools to support the shift in consciousness that each and every one of us has been working on now for years and years. And it is at these critical moments that we need to press in even harder to the truth that we believe, as opposed to being discouraged by the brokenness of the world. This is when our light is called for the most. This is when we have to dig the deepest into our belief that everything begins in consciousness, and that you and I, in addition to our words, our money, and our actions, we contribute causally at the level of consciousness for claiming and demanding peace. So we're going to sing this song together, and then Reverend Karen is going to do a spiritual mind treatment for peace and the Ukraine, and then we are going to invite you to join us tonight at 5 o'clock.
I would invite you to stand and sing this song with us.
Oops.
My love over the mountains, I send my love over the sea, I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my joy over the mountains, I send my joy over the sea, I send my joy into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my peace over the mountains, I send my peace over the sea, I send my peace into the heavens, and it returns to me. My love over the mountains, I send my love over the seas, I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my joy over the mountains, I send my joy over the sea, I send my joy into the heavens, and it returns to me. I send my peace over the mountains, I send my peace over the sea, I send my peace into the heavens, and it returns to me. And it
I'm not directly quoting, so I'll say I'm paraphrasing, but I'm pretty darn close. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, says this: to desert the truth in the hour that we need it the most is to have never known the truth. I shall not retreat. I know that you shall not retreat. I know that we, that individualized expression of life itself that unabashedly gives to itself fully and freely and supports itself, we, as life itself, shall not retreat. We shall not be moved, pushed back. No more 2 steps backwards. I take a stand for love, that boundless love that has no borders, barriers, lines, fences, countries, any expression in the mind of humankind. Because boundless love has none of that in the divine mind. I take a stand for peace. That peace which passes all understanding shall not be moved. And I invite you to take that stand inside yourself in the biggest and grandest, most wide open spaces place you can. For this is one life. This is one love. This is one peace. This is one thing, known by so many things. It's still one. There's nothing separating it from itself. It's nothing dividing it from itself. It is in full support, unabashedly, to bring itself forward in the highest potentiality, and has throughout everything, and shall. And it, this life itself, this boundless love, this peace, this harmony, shall not be moved. And so as I know this, I know that I am that I am. And as I know that I am that I am, and since I am the cell in the one body of this thing called life, the thing itself, I know that all the other cells of this body is working in this incredible network to fulfill the body of peace right here and right now. I know that the blade of grass is at peace with the soil. I know that the tree is at peace with the birds that sit on it. I know that anything that is alive and awake and aware and how this life works is at peace in the knowledge within itself that we are the one body. And what I know for sure as I declare and claim this is there are more healthy cells that know this in the one body than there are cancerous cells, and those can be removed. Those thoughts are removed right here and right now. There is no precedent to this thing called life. It doesn't matter how many world wars we have had, intersectionality, division, conflict. Right now, there is a stand for peace and harmony and boundless love, that life thrives because it consciously wants to. We all have that divine spark. We're here for a reason and a season and a lifetime of peace. Our brothers and sisters of Ukraine take a stand for peace. I know that there are ways in which peace shows us up that blows our ever-loving mind. I know that no matter where we are on this planet, we bring peace right here, right now. For war cannot stand. Division cannot stand in this body. Take a breath. Feel it at the end. This is the peace that is birthed now. That peace that is within each of us is birthed now. We be peace all over this planet, all over this universe, all over this one body of life itself. And so releasing these words, setting them loose, what I know beyond any doubt is they must be made manifest, that the universal law brings this forward. I need not know how, I just know it is so. I'm grateful for the peace. I expect this peace. I expect anything unlike it to be released. We feed the wolf of peace right here, right now, and so it is.
Make love real, right? We're closing down Make Love Real, and today is about giving love. We've talked about being love and seeing love and receiving love. And we wrap it up with giving love. And I loved what that song said. It doesn't matter how much money you give. It doesn't matter how much self-sacrifice, how many times you martyr yourself or do and do and do and do. If it's not done with love, if we're not giving love, it's not going to fill the other person up, and it's certainly not going to fill us up. Yeah. So I had an entirely different talk planned for today. And then, as you know, the invasion of Ukraine happened on the same day. Our governor stood on the steps of somewhere and added not only to the idea that neighbors should turn in people who were supporting women who needed an abortion, but now you should also turn in your neighbor who is supporting their transgender child. This was my response. Can't possibly be happening. This cannot be happening. Are we not in the 21st century? Have we not yet learned our lessons? Have we not looked the beast of otherness in the face and begun to realize that it is us? Them is us, they is us, we is them, however you want to say it. If there is one human family, it's not possible. And all I could do was shake my head. And then once again, I had to realize that when the announcement around the Texas stand around abortion happened, I shook my head. And I went, it's not possible. Really, it's not possible. Obviously, it is possible. So one of the reasons that I shake my head around it is you may not know this about me, but I'm a first-generation American. My parents are immigrants from Germany. Both my mother and my father were teenagers during the Second World War. My father was conscripted into the army at 15. My mother's family was Catholic. Catholics were some of the people who went to the concentration camps. You may not know that. 6 million Jews were gassed. 6 million additional people were also gassed. Intellectuals, journalists, homosexuals, Romanians, gypsies, disabled people, people who disagreed, and Catholics. My grandfather was a resistor. He was not a Jew, but he refused to be a Nazi. And they walked on eggshells. He refused to buy my mother and her sisters the uniform for the young Nazi party that they were required to be a part of. And so they cobbled together brown skirts that kind of looked like the uniform and brown sweaters that looked like the uniform. And they watched people be removed from their street. The disabled woman who used to live in the window that they would wave to on the way to school, friends and neighbors. And they began to realize that they were being watched. The only reason they were being watched and not hauled off was because my grandfather's job was important to the war effort. He owned a welding shop, and the Army was using it to weld the repairs for their trucks. And so my grandfather was tolerated, but his family was watched. People would come to the door, knock on the door, and say, "We are watching you." 2 years into the war, my family was moved into the basement, and they moved SS officers into the family home. They needed a place. More importantly, they didn't trust my grandfather. My mother and her sisters and her brother, who they lost in the war, were understood never to speak about anything outside the home, ever, to anybody, for any reason. At night, they would listen to the BBC broadcast as low as they could go, while still hearing it, huddling around, looking for real information. Night after night, week after week, month after month, year after year, knowing that should their BBC radio and their BBC broadcast be heard by the SS officers who were living just above them, they would all be summarily shot. I grew up on those stories of being watched. This is not love. Love is a positive regard for other human beings, a desire to want the best for them. And if we have a positive regard for another human being and we want the best for them, surely we understand that we might not know what that is from our own point of view. That the best for them may actually be something that we don't quite understand. But as long as it harms no one else, as long as it's not vicious and malicious and hateful, a positive regard says if that's the best for you, I make love real by supporting something even if I don't understand it. Even if I can't imagine it. Even if I'm not sure what it's about. Even if I can't see myself that way. Love is so big, so wide, so rich, so full, so deep, that it has space for those things we don't understand. It has space for individuality, diversity, difference. because it recognizes that all of that is simply the flowering of oneness into its magnificence. I don't know what to do with my shaking of the head. It's not possible. Other than to remember my parents and my grandparents and all of those people who resisted, who said no. And those people who acted and said no. This is not how we are to be together. This is not how humanity behaves. This is not what it means to make love real. To stand in that place of mutuality, of support, of empowerment, of lifting another. So I ask myself today the question Tracy Brown asks every day: what is mine to do? What is mine to do? What is mine to do in consciousness? What is mine to do with my spiritual work? What is mine to do with my words, with my actions, with my place as a spiritual leader? But you know, I'll never forget an article I read a number of years ago. And the article said the worst thing that ever happened to our desire for peace, equity, and sustainability was the idea that it's up to each of us individually. 1,000,000 points, if you'll recall. 1,000,000 lights. Each one individual. Do your own recycling. Make sure you love your neighbor. Do your own. And in spirituality, it's no different. Do your own inner work. Make sure you're doing your inner work. Make sure you're not carrying around a place of unpeace, unpeace, I don't think that's a word, sorry. a place of whatever that is, right? Make sure you're not carrying it around. Oh, yes, that work is important. No question about it. But it has robbed us of our understanding of the power of all of us. And it does take all of us to shift consciousness. It takes all of us to speak, to act, to vote our values, vote those things that are important to us, vote in alignment with our spiritual truths, be engaged, be out and supportive, even if it's a little frightening. I think about my grandfather and my parents, my mother and my aunts and uncles huddling around that BBC knowing that they could be shot for that. And I think, wow, am I willing to manage a fine, maybe be thrown in jail? These are the questions that stand before us. I don't have an answer for you. I'm not sure I quite yet have an answer for me. But these are the questions. And I want my life to be measured by love. Not the love that turns away, not the love that's easy, not the love that is comfortable, but the love that is fierce. A love that's willing to pray for those people that I so fundamentally disagree with that I cannot hardly stand to hear what they say. To act from that love when I'm not sure whether the actions make a difference, whether they matter. To act, even though I may be afraid to speak. I believe that we are in a turning point in consciousness, that we have been systematically working towards the awakening of humanity at every level, spiritually, in the peace movement, in the environmental movement, in the Black Lives Matter movement, in the women's movement, in the any movement that has sought to free us from bondage, that has tried to free us from old paradigms. And the list is long of the paradigms that have brought us to this moment in time in Texas, in the US, and on our planet. We cannot look away. Life needs us. The world needs us. Our nation needs us. Texas needs us. Our nieces and nephews and children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and the great-grandchildren of our neighbors, they need us. And it is in my personal spiritual work that I find the courage, the willingness to overcome my fear, to walk through the uncertainty, to try to ask myself, what is mine to do? But to also ask, what is ours to do? Yes, what is ours to be? Absolutely. And to do. Are there easy answers? Of course not. But there is a path forward. And without that path, we will continue to circle around these ways of being over and over and over again. In all those ways that we say, well, it's inevitable. You can't really do anything about it. The problem's too big. Or we say, what can my little thing do? But to recognize that we are colluding with life itself, with love, to make love real. To make love real is to be empowered by love. And to find that deep, fierce, powerful place within us that says, as Ernest Holmes says, the universal no. No, this is not love being made manifest. And to work for what looks like love being made manifest to each one of us. So today, I have more questions than answers. And if you're like me, I like my comfortable life. I like the way it works. I've spent a lot of time working on making it work. I'm pretty good with it. I feel pretty confident about the spiritual ground upon which I stand within my own life. But life is calling us to the second part, a world that works for everyone. And a world that works for everyone is built on making love real. Let us pray. Just inviting you to turn within. Just inviting you to breathe. It's hard to look at. It's painful to think about. I ask myself over and over and over again, what am I choosing to love? Am I loving my comfort? Or am I loving my neighbor? Am I loving convenience, or am I loving the planet? And am I loving that which I know? Or am I willing to love that which I don't understand? There is one love that is the very impulse of life itself. The creative power that has manifested a beautiful, blessed universe, a cosmos alive with light, alive with aliveness, everywhere breaking out, from the stars and the galaxies to the planets, to all of creation right here on earth, to every cell and molecule that makes it up, everything vibrating all the way down to the tiniest particles, vibrating with aliveness. That aliveness is love made manifest, the impulse of creation. And it doesn't just make manifest in random ways, it makes itself manifest out of the design of intelligence, that which promotes life, more life, unfolding life, evolving life, expanding life, life exploding over and over and over again. And that life is the life of all beings everywhere. It's the life of all creation. It's the life of all of humanity, every individual being, every person, everywhere. Here, right now. In this room, online, whenever anyone hears the sounds of this voice. And so it is in that oneness that I stand today. I stand in the truth of that interconnection. And as I see this truth, I celebrate. I celebrate all of the myriad of ways that one life shows up. As a rose, as a hummingbird, as a manatee, as a scorpion, and as all kinds of plants and animals, and the variety, the multiplicity of humanity. One life, one love, intelligently expressed. And so while I know that is true about the one life, what I affirm and declare for myself and for each one of us here, that there is a wisdom and an intelligence, that it is moving in, through, and as us into a greater understanding and a greater expression of what is mine to do, what is ours to do. And that this same impulse of love, this same intelligence is moving through people everywhere, through individuals, through organizations, through churches and spiritual communities and corporations and in business and in government, through politicians and leaders everywhere. Awakening over and over and over again to this recognition that every life is a part of the one life. To see with the eyes of love. To be love. To know that there is enough love to receive. That there is no fear of giving love. So I simply deny the reality that there is anything to fear. I release fear of otherness. I release fear of transgender. I release fear of black and white. I release fear of men and women. I release fear of non-binary. I release fear of anything that I don't understand, that harms no one. And I stand witness to the emerging of real love. Love that acts and moves and lives as a presence that is palpably seen in our laws, in our actions, in our behaviors, not just individually, but socially, society-wise, collectively. For this is to live as love, in love, and to bring love. And since I know that this love is in alignment with the highest, deepest, fullest, richest, widest impulse of the universe itself, I know that the intelligence and the laws and the universal principles must rally around this truth. And over and over and over and over and over again, we speak into this truth, act into this truth. And the universe says yes, yes, yes. I don't have to know how. I don't have to know what. I don't have to know anything other than this truth. And in that, I trust that words are guided, actions are guided. The result is love. So it is here that I stand. It is here that I stake this claim for each and every one of us, for all of humanity. I accept a sane, equitable, sustainable, connected outpicturing, and I call it good. I let it be, and so it is.